Sienna, you are the light of my life. Will you marry me?
Oh, Minho, yes, of course I will. I love you so much.
I almost didn't make it back to you.
But you did. And I'm not leaving your side.
Please, just tell me why you did it. Look at me.
I can't. It's better if you don't know the truth.
Welcome back to the final part of Sienna and Minho's story. If you're just jumping in, you need to go back and watch parts 1 and 2 first, because this ending is gonna hit different when you know everything that led to this moment. Sienna Clark walked into Kang Minho's world thinking she could keep one foot out, thinking she could take his money and stay free. But freedom is a luxury people like Minho don't offer. Now she's about to learn that being his means more than just answering when he calls. It means accepting a claim she never agreed to, a future she never planned for, and a choice that will define the rest of her life. 3 months after the warehouse incident, Sienna had settled into a rhythm that felt almost normal, if you ignored the fact that nothing about her life was actually normal anymore. She attended classes, maintained her perfect GPA, and twice more had been called out in the middle of the night to treat injuries that couldn't see the inside of a hospital. A gunshot wound to the shoulder, through and through, minimal damage. A broken arm that needed setting and casting. Each time she performed flawlessly, and each time she felt herself sinking deeper into Minho's world. He called regularly now, not always for medical emergencies. Sometimes it was dinner at expensive restaurants where they talked about her studies, and he told her carefully edited stories about his life. Sometimes it was late-night calls where he just wanted to hear her voice, to know she was safe, to remind her that she was his. The possessiveness never eased, but Sienna found herself growing used to it, even craving it in moments she wouldn't admit to anyone, not even herself. She hadn't dated anyone, hadn't even considered it. The truth was, no one else could compete with the intensity of what she had with Minho, this dangerous, complicated thing that wasn't quite a relationship, but was definitely more than a business arrangement. Her mother called one Sunday afternoon, and Sienna made the mistake of answering while she was studying in her expensive apartment, with its view of the city and its security that felt more like surveillance. "Baby, how are you? I feel like I haven't talked to you in forever." "I'm good, Mama, just busy with school." "That scholarship still covering everything?" "Yes, ma'am, everything." There was a pause, and Sienna could hear the worry in her mother's voice when she spoke again. "Sienna, you know you can tell me if something's wrong, right? You sound different, distant. Are you sure everything's okay?" "I'm sure, Mama, just stressed about exams." Another pause. "Okay, baby, I love you. Call me more often, hear?" "I will. Love you too." Sienna hung up and felt the weight of the lies pressing down on her chest. She couldn't tell her mother the truth, couldn't explain that she'd sold her freedom for financial security, that she was bound to a man who operated in the shadows and violence, that she was complicit in things that would horrify the woman who'd raised her to value integrity above all else. The emergency phone rang at 2:15 a.m. on a Thursday in late March, and Sienna knew before she answered that this was going to be different. The timing was wrong, the feeling was wrong, everything felt wrong. "Sienna, I need you at the estate. Now. It's not a patient, it's me." Minho's voice was strained in a way she'd never heard before. Her heart stopped. "What happened?" "Stabbed. Left side, below the ribs. I've been managing it for 3 hours, but it's not stopping. I need you." "Minho, if you've been bleeding for 3 hours?" "I know. Just come, please." The please broke her. She'd never heard him say that word, never heard him ask for anything rather than command it. She was dressed and out the door in under 2 minutes. The Genesis arrived within 5 minutes, driving faster than she'd ever experienced, the city blaring past the windows. Her mind was racing, running through protocols for stab wounds, blood loss, shock. 3 hours was a long time to bleed, too long. When she arrived at the estate, she was rushed to his private quarters, not the medical wing. She found him in his bedroom, sitting on the edge of his bed, stripped to the waist, one hand pressed against his left side, where blood seeped steadily between his fingers. His face was pale, his jaw tight with pain, and there was blood on the expensive sheets, the floor, everywhere. "Jesus, Minho." Sienna dropped to her knees in front of him, her hands already assessing the wound. Deep puncture just below the ribs, angled upward, possibly into the spleen or liver. This was bad. This was hospital bad. Why didn't you call me sooner? I couldn't. Had to make sure the situation was contained first. Had to protect you. Protect me? You're bleeding out. Her voice cracked, and she realized with a stunning clarity that she was terrified, not just as his doctor, but as someone who'd become far more invested in his survival than she ever intended. She worked quickly, converting his bedroom into a makeshift surgical suite. She sent his people running for supplies from the medical wing, barking orders with an authority that had them moving without question. Within minutes, she had everything she needed, and she set to work. The wound was deep, tracking up under his ribcage. She numbed the area as best as she could, but she knew it wasn't enough. She knew he was going to feel most of this. This is going to hurt badly. I know. Do it. She explored the wound, her fingers steady by the fear coursing through her. The blade had tracked between ribs, missing the spleen by centimeters, but nicking a small vessel that was the source of the persistent bleeding. She clamped it, ligated it, her movements precise and controlled, while inside she was screaming. Minho never made a sound, but she could feel the tension in his body, could see the way his free hand gripped the edge of the bed hard enough to turn his knuckles white. She worked for over an hour, controlling the bleeding, debriding damaged tissue, closing the wound in careful layers. When she finally finished and secured the dressing, she sat back on her heels and let herself shake. You could have died. If that blade had been 1 centimeter to the right, it would have hit your spleen and you would have bled out internally before I got here. Do you understand that? I understand, but I didn't, because you saved me. Again. Sienna felt tears prick her eyes, overwhelmed by the confession, by the vulnerability from a man who showed vulnerability to no one. This is insane. This whole situation's insane. I know, but it's ours. And I'm asking you now, not commanding. Will you stay? Not just as my doctor, not just as my asset, but as mine, as someone I'm building something with. She should say no. She should run. She should get as far away from this dangerous man and his dangerous world as possible. But when she looked at him, wounded and vulnerable, and looking at her like she was the only thing anchoring him to the world, she knew her answer. I'll stay, but things change. I'm not just someone you call when you need me. I'm not just someone who shows up and follows orders. If I'm yours, then you're mine too. That means honesty. That means letting me in, really in, not just to patch me up, but to actually know you. Can you do that? I can do that. I want to do that. I've never wanted that with anyone before, but I want it with you. Minho smiled, the expression transforming his face, making him look younger and less dangerous. Over the next 3 days, Sienna barely left his side. She monitored his recovery, changed his dressings, adjusted his medications, and slowly, gradually, he opened up to her. He told her about growing up as the son of a man who valued power over family, about being raised by his mentor after his father disowned him for refusing to follow a predetermined path. He told her about building his organization from nothing, about the choices he made and the lines he crossed, and the things he regretted. And she told him about her mother working 2 jobs, about the pressure of being the first in her family to go to college, about the fear that she'd fail and prove every doubter right. They talked for hours, their conversations ranging from deep and painful to light and easy, building something real underneath the complicated circumstances that brought them together. On the 4th day, when he was finally strong enough to move around without her supervision, Minho called her into his study. It was a room she'd never been in before, dark wood and leather and walls lined with books in multiple languages. Sit, he said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. Sienna sat, wondering if this was where he told her it had all been a mistake, that the vulnerability had been the pain medication talking, that things would go back to how they were. Instead, he opened a drawer and pulled out a small black box. I've been thinking about our arrangement, about how to structure our future in a way that protects us both. What I'm about to offer you is unconventional, but everything about us has been unconventional from the start. He opened the box, revealing a ring. Not a diamond solitaire, but something more unique. A band of platinum with a black diamond set flush into the metal, elegant and understated, and somehow perfect. Marry me. Sienna's breath caught. What? Marry me.
Not because you have to, not because it's required by our agreement, but because I want you in my life permanently, because you've become essential to me in ways that go beyond your medical skills, because I love you, and I think you might love me too, even though this whole situation is complicated and messy and probably inadvisable.
He stood and came around the desk, kneeling in front of her, the position vulnerable and shocking from a man who never showed vulnerability.
I can't offer you a normal life. I can't promise you safety or simplicity or any of the things you probably deserve. But I can promise you everything I have. My protection, my loyalty, my complete honesty, and a partnership where you have real power, real authority. You'll finish medical school, you'll practice medicine, and you'll run all medical operations for my organization. You'll be my equal, Sienna, my partner in everything. Say yes.
Sienna looked at the ring, then at his face, at the sincerity and vulnerability and hope in his eyes. She thought about her mother's voice telling her you can't build a life on what isn't yours. But this was hers, wasn't it? She'd earned it, saved for it, bled for it. She'd made choices that led her here, and she'd made them with open eyes. Yes, I'll marry you, she whispered. The smile that broke across his face was radiant, unguarded, pure joy. He slid the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly like everything else in this insane situation. Then he pulled her into his arms, carefully mindful of his injury, and kissed her like she was oxygen and he'd been drowning. When they finally broke apart, Sienna laughed, the sound slightly hysterical. My mother is going to lose her mind.
I'll win her over. I'm very charming when I need to be.
You're terrifying.
That too. But I'm yours.
Completely yours. 4 months later, they were married in a private ceremony at the estate, small and intimate with only the people who mattered most. Sienna's mother was there, surprisingly won over by Minho's respectful courtship and substantial donation to the charity she ran. His mentor was there, fully recovered, watching with approval, and a small group of his trusted associates, the ones who'd come to respect Sienna as much for her spine as for her surgical skills. Sienna wore a simple white dress, elegant and understated, her locks styled in an elaborate updo woven with small white flowers. Minho wore a traditional Korean hanbok, honoring his heritage, looking devastating and beautiful and completely focused on her. When he slid the wedding band onto her finger next to the engagement ring, he whispered,
Thank you for taking a chance on me. On us.
Thank you for testing me with that card holder, the best, worst decision I ever made, she whispered back. They honeymooned in Korea, where he showed her the country of his ancestors and introduced her to the parts of his life he'd kept separate. And when they returned, Sienna started medical school with his full support, no longer as just his asset, but his wife, his partner, his equal. The waitress who'd found a card holder in a diner booth had become a doctor in training, the wife of one of the city's most powerful men, and the woman who'd chosen to build her life in the shadows alongside someone who saw her strength and valued it above everything else. Her life was complicated, dangerous, and unconventional, but it was hers, earned through integrity and courage and the willingness to take a chance on something impossible. And as she stood in her new life, looking at the man who tested her and claimed her and ultimately loved her, Sienna knew she'd made the right choice, the only choice that mattered. She was his, he was hers, and together they'd built something real from the ashes of a calculated test and a simple act of honesty. That's it, the complete story of Sienna and Minho, from a lost card holder to a wedding ring. If this story grabbed you, hit that like button one more time and subscribe, because I've got more stories coming that are just as intense. Drop a comment and let me know what you thought of this ending. Did Sienna make the right choice? Would you have done the same? And what kind of stories do you want to see next? Let me know below, and I'll see you in the next one.